All right, let's go ahead and get started. How apropos that I see Chuck Singleton first
Mhm.
on the list of people attending. Chuck's from one of the stations involved here, WFUV. It's great to see you, Chuck.
Hey, Chuck.
And there's Rosalind from BGO. So the home teams are getting well represented early. Any people I know. So thank you for joining. All right, I'm gonna get out of that and get going here. So, hi, everybody. My name's Mike Henry. Thank you for joining this collaborative fundraising webinar hosted by Public Media Company and CDP and Paragon. Paragon works exclusively with public radio stations to provide audience and member research, as well as having a team of specialized public radio consultants that work across all departments, including membership, which were represented by Brianna O'Higgins and Michael L. Sesser, who many of you probably know. Um, Again, if you'd like, put your name and your title and station in Q&A, and you'll know you're here with others as you see people load in there. A reminder, this will be recorded and is being recorded, and we'll be providing that after the webinar to everyone who registered. So we're going to jump right in with introductions. Carlos and Deb, you want to lead us off with your introductions, please?
Sure. Carlos Barrionuevo. I'm a director at a public media company, and we were the lead sort of um, project facilitator on this project. Dad?
Yeah, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Deb Ashmore. I'm a data strategist at CDP. And if you know anything at all about CDP, you know that we are data first. Everything we do starts with what the data tells us. So we were brought in to do some data analysis for folks.
All right, let's hear from the station folks. Steve, Rich, Eileen, and Julie.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Good afternoon or good morning. So those of you who are on the left coast, I'm Stephen A. Williams, the president and CEO of WBGO Newark Public Radio, right here downtown Newark on 54 Wayne Shorter Way.
Hey everyone, how you doing? My name is Rich McLaughlin. I am the Associate General Manager of WFUV in New York, and I am on the campus right now of Fordham University in Keating Hall. So good to see everyone.
Hello, everyone. I'm Eileen Delahunty. I'm the current interim general manager for WQXR in New York. We are part of New York Public Radio, and I am in the lovely state of New Jersey.
Oh,
Hi,
All
I'm
right.
Julie Ferdino, the program director at WSHU Public Radio. We are located on the campus of Sacred Heart University in Fairfield, Connecticut, but we also serve Suffolk County, Long Island, which is Suffolk County, New York, which is Long Island.
So before we get started, I want to thank the Corporation for Public Broadcasting for providing the grant that allowed all of this to happen. Thank you to Jackie and Kathy and everybody there. As usual, a lot of things in our world would not happen without them. So
mhm.
I want to thank them. They named this the Tri-State um, Public Radio Music Station Collaboration. It's a mouthful. We just shortened it to the Tri-State Collaboration as we talked internally. But we're going to talk to these four stations today who are part of the first ever in-market collaboration of what had been competing radio stations. We're going to focus on two elements today. One is member donor overlap, and the other is joint events and fundraising. We're going to have a few slides up front, but not a lot. Most of the time is going to be spent with a roundtable with the four station representatives. I want you to keep in mind that what you're getting here is a glimpse of a collaboration in its infancy. This just started earlier this year. The grant ended a couple of months ago. The stations are continuing to work together. They'll share how they got to their conclusions of how to collaborate. That's really a big part of this. because when it started, it was an open slate. How do you want to collaborate? Well, we'll show you, and they'll show you what they ended up deciding to do. Um, there's a Q&A box there at the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions during the webinar, put it in there. And Paragon's Michelle Conrad will raise her hand, so I'll be able to see, and she'll read your question. We may not be able to get to all the questions today, but we're going to do as many as possible. And we have some questions already teed up for these folks that they've wanted to answer as well. So to get us started, I'm going to screen share. And as luck would have it, it says my computer battery is dying. So I'm trying to do this off of one laptop. All right. Hopefully, panelists, are you able to see that?
No.
No.
Not yet. All right. Let me try this. All right. How about now?
We're all good.
Yep.
Awesome. I have no idea why my battery is all of a sudden dying, but I had to change power sources and I eliminated my second screen. Don't you love technical difficulties? All right. Again, this is a collaborative fundraising webinar, and we're going to start off with Carlos, giving us an idea of how this came together. Carlos from Public
So,
Media Company.
yep. So like I said, so this collaboration really came together as the leadership at the four stations, they asked a simple question, which was, what could we do more together? And that simple step really is how this started. From there, they approached PMC. We had worked on a lot of different news collaboratives, and they asked us to help them put together a proposal for CPB to fund basically an exploration of, as Mike was saying, an exploration of how they could work together and which were the places where they would want to work together, which are the priorities and which are the ones that might be a little farther off. Um, as you can see, each of these stations is a leader in their genre. And it was a project that we saw a ton of potential because there are a couple really unique things about this. First, there's an opportunity to work with music stations, which frankly for us is always a really big plus. Sometimes they get left a little outside of the system, and we love working with them because music stations really engage their audiences. We were looking at a market where there was a lot of public media, and there is multiple genres in that one market, all from leading stations. So all the major public media music genres are represented: jazz, classical, AAA, and split format. And so it was a great sort of test environment. And frankly, what we also saw was which is so necessary for collaboratives, was a generation of leaders that was truly motivated by the spirit of cooperation, which really set the stage for a much richer conversation. And even in this pre-recession environment, and remember, this started before recession, we felt that this was a great opportunity, and it's critical to understand how strong stations can work together to actually do much more than just being individual stations or having this idea of competition within public media. So just briefly on our approach, and you're going to see the fruit of this throughout this presentation. It was Public Media Company, Paragon, and CDP that ended up working together. We facilitated, PMC helped facilitate the vision and the strategic discussions among the stations who were really just getting to know each other and their operations. We used scheduled regular meetings and in-person summits to really create engagement and trust between all of the stations. And then we care about like CDP and like Paragon, we all carry about data and having data to be able to make informed decisions. So on the PMC side, we pulled data together from the different stations and operations, put it in a format that we could share back to all the stations so they could get to know each other and understand their own their strategies were going. We also then the grant funded Paragon to do original research, which I believe we'll talk a little bit about, uh, both the digital audit of their stations and the membership survey. And then we brought in our partner CDP to also do look at the membership database and be able to do some deep analysis. All this being data that we could use to inform the discussions around the collaboration. And finally, we very much encouraged looking at finding tools and other frameworks to really support this ongoing exchange of information past this initial exploration. All this to not only just sort of start and find the initial findings, but to make sure that the collaborative would continue onward and take on a life of its own. And speaking of membership analysis,
Deb's up. Deb Ashmore,
Yes.
CDP.
Great. Thank you, Carlos. Yes, thank you. CDP was brought in to do this analysis of the data, to take a look at some donor overlap, as well as how these stations were performing for various fundraising metrics, and look at the different subgroups within those donors to see how they were giving across the different stations. So the goal, of course, was to expand, to see where there could be opportunities to expand both audience as well as membership and fundraising. The outcomes were we had about 75,000 donor records that we analyzed across the organizations. We identified the overlapping donors. And took a look at, again, how those different subsegments of donors were behaving across the organizations. Next slide, please. There we go. Okay, so first let's go ahead and take a look at how these donors overlapped across the 4 organizations. How you might want to read this slide is to start at the top and just read down each column. I'm going to start with New York Public Radio. They're the one all the way over on the left. I do want to say right up front that in this particular study, New York Public Radio did include data from WNYC as well as QXR. So both of those organizations both those stations were included within that donor segment. So lots of overlap there for New York Public Radio. About 2% of their file, the largest, right, overlapping with WFUV and WBGO, just a little under 2%. Notice there's a very negligible amount of overlap with WSHU, and that is true for all of the other stations as well. For WSHU, they had the least amount of overlap in the general files. WFUV and WBGO are both very interesting. You look at the top figure for both of those organizations, and you're going to see pretty high figures. Almost 20% of their files are overlapping with New York Public Radio. So, so some very engaged donors for those organizations. And if you look at their overlap with each other, FUV and WBGO are both seeing about 3 or 4% of donor overlap across their 2 stations as well. All right, so now let's take a look at major donors. And major donors here are folks who give at least $1,000 in a 12-month period, and that can be cumulative giving, right? So your higher level donors. The first row of data beneath each of the organization call letters is the total percent of those major donors or higher level donors that are contributing to the station as a percent of all of their 12-month donors. The range is from 2.6 to about 3.4%, but really staying around that 3% range across all of the organizations. Again, that's of all of their donors, what percent are giving $1,000 or more. I'll tell you, for the system, they're right in line with the median. In fact, New York Public Radio is the median at 2.6%. The row, one more, sorry, go back. The row just below that is their overlap in their major donors. Here, a dual major donor is someone who's a major donor to their own station as well as to one of the other, or at least one of the other organizations. So you can see there is some overlap. So you have some very generous donors who are making large gifts or making several gifts in the course of a year to more than one station in their market. So a very interesting group of donors. Okay, now let's go ahead to the next slide. All right. This slide is looking at the total revenue that is coming to each of these stations from the donors that also give to a different station, right? So of all the revenue they have on their file, how much is coming from donors who are also giving elsewhere? Not a surprise to see that WBGO has the highest percentage. They also had the highest percentage of major donor overlap. The other really interesting thing on this slide is down the bottom, where we're looking at the average gift size from donors across the whole file, and then again that subset of donors who do also give to another station. And at just about for every org that we studied here, the average gift for the donors who also give to other orgs is higher. Right. So I thought that was a really great, really interesting finding. The next slide, we're going to take a look at our sustainers, a really important group of donors in public media, of course. Again, that first row is the percent of all donors that are making sustainer gifts for these organizations. The range is about 35% to almost 70% for New York Public Radio, so quite a wide range. The median for all of public radio is about 58%, just to give you an idea. And then again, that row below that is the overlap percentage of the organization sustainers that are also sustainers to one of the other organizations. So it's not just those higher dollar donors who are, very willing and able to give at higher levels to other orgs, but also sustainers will make other sustaining gifts to other public media organizations in their market. So again, I really thought that was a great finding. And the last thing that we're able to do when we do a cohort study like this is to, again, compare the group and their fundraising results as a group to those national medians, so that as a group, they can understand their performance and sort of see, okay, I know how I'm doing, but is there something specific about the type of station that I have, in this case, sort of music station, or about the area that I'm in? Sometimes geographically, areas are having different experiences than the overall. So we're also able to do that kind of comparison as well. Now, again, this was pre-rescission. We were seeing great growth across public media in some, all key performance indicators: membership revenue, new donors, high dollar gifts, and sustainers. These orgs were also seeing growth, but not quite as strong. Again, pre-rescission. I imagine it's a different tune now. But again, I think that was a good finding for these orgs to know that, okay, there was something a little different about what's happening with music stations at that time. Take it away.
All right. Before we jump into the membership studies, I want to just put a pin in Deb's part, which is, if you're looking to collaborate in your market, I would think one of the first calls I would make is to CDP, because sharing your membership data with them allows them to then do this type of analysis. It was commendable that these 4 stations allowed their membership data to be shared with the other stations so that they could do that analysis at CDP, and also to share it with you here. The next few slides, and only a handful here, and we'll get to the roundtable and your questions. And reminder, you can put your questions in the Q&A if you have any questions about Deb's analysis of donor overlap. Go ahead and put them in there. So Paragon surveyed 1,200 members, 300 from each of the four stations. We looked at everything related to this collaboration, their interest in it, why would they support a collaboration, what would their preferred donation methods be, what would their desired collaborative offerings be. So this is a new concept. We had to describe the concept to the members and get the results. But we were all astounded by the top line finding, which is at the bottom of this slide, and that is that roughly 6 out of 10 members of these four stations said that they would be very likely or somewhat likely to provide a separate and additional donation to a collaborative effort between the four stations. And so that's huge. We did not expect that number. That shows that even before the collaboration had begun, that there was a willingness for members of these four stations to participate and support the collaboration between the four stations. The motivations for supporting the collaborative were just basically to support the community, provide general public radio support. This survey was done during the heat of the rescission timing. So that's not surprising. That came back strong. Transparency, knowing how the funds will be used, supporting music variety from multiple stations came back, as you can see, also high. Being able to attend exclusive local events that the stations would host as a group also fared well. And incentives were not as important, but roughly 1 out of 4 said that they would do that. And then you can see down at the bottom right in terms of their preferred additional donation type, the yearly renewal or monthly came in the highest. A joint fund drive came in also very well, and purchasing tickets to a local event sponsored by the stations. Those were the top 3. There were others, but those were the headlines. As far as interest in things that the collaboration might do, we tested these concepts. A new email newsletter between the four stations that highlights local music events came back the highest. Also want to note that whenever we broke out the sample of members who had children in their homes, that also came back high and made us think that maybe we should also have or consider that newsletter to be, kid and family friendly. And so newsletters is something that we've seen at Paragon over the last few years and growing in importance, and people seem to not get enough of them. And here it is with the collaboration as well. At 63% was a music festival. And again, a kids and family friendly version of that came back very strongly. 2 out of 3 if you have children in the household. A digital calendar of live music events came back over 50%, well over 50%. And so did a collaborative music app. And you might be remembering that the Run survey results also put the calendar at the top of the list of things that people said that public radio should consider doing. So we found that to be true locally here. And those are the things that help us understand and kind of built our strategy. As you can see on this slide, these are the things that these stations are now moving forward with doing and discussing. We found out that there were benefits to doing joint events. You can build the funnel, the awareness, enhance community building, create additional revenue streams, and build scale. And we'll come back to the Tiny Desk contest on the road, which the four stations presented together. And here's a slide about that. The stations co-promoted the event. They had on-stage announcements from each of the stations, and each of the stations were tabled at that event. And again, we are going to come back to that in our Q&A. The big tent idea, so called, by this group is that joint events became sort of the answer to the question, how can we best collaborate? Yes, there are things from a content standpoint or even from a services of sharing standpoint that were possible, but they found that events was the sweet spot because it's something they all do. It doesn't require changing your on-air product. It's a promotion. It's something they could all participate with in on site, and it's something that they could monetize. And so when it came to fundraising for the collaboration, events sort of moved to the front of that conversation. We can fundraise around joint events. So I'm going to stop screen sharing and move to the round table. Remind you all that you can put questions in the Q&A if you have any. But to get started here, let's talk about the donor overlap first. Steve, would you like to sort of start by telling us what meaning and what did you learn from the donor overlap data?
Well, Mike, for me, seeing the data, although gratifying, was not necessarily a surprise. Because here's the thing. We knew that there was potential in this collaboration. That's why we did it in the first place. That's why we went to CPB and said, hey, fund this. By the way, I can never thank CPB enough for what they did to move this thing forward. It just, yeah. But yeah, we felt that there was potential in collaboration, as you indicated earlier. Um, the landscape here in New York City is unique because there are so many public media organizations, public radio stations, public radio music stations. And so if ever there was going to be an opportunity for stations to collaborate, it's going to be here because of the proliferation of stations. So it wasn't surprising at all. Once you get into the numbers and you start seeing things, I've looked at that study several times now, and there were some revelations to me, but the overlap was not a revelation. It was an affirmation of the things that we all need to do. And mind you, we were out in front of the whole idea of stations. Now we're starting to see this more and more, where stations are looking at the possibilities for collaboration and actually doing something about it. But we were out in front with this thing. We said, "Hey, here's an opportunity for us." Before there was, we knew that there was a possibility of funding rescission. But that has been, the specter of that has been around for a long time. But we just we felt that it was something that could happen, that should happen. And so we were very proactive about it, and it was borne out in the numbers.
Rich, would you like to comment on the notion of competing and overcoming that as it relates to major donors?
Yes, I think there was definitely a period in the beginning where we were getting to know each other, but over time we began to really earn the trust of like the wider group, and there was a lot of engagement involved as well. I think Carlos, he put it, he said the spirit of collaboration. I think there was definitely a spirit of collaboration throughout all of this, and it was only strengthened by everything that was going on within the industry. So I think the timing of this collaboration was also key because we were all going through similar challenges at the same time. So we were able to come together, talk about some of the challenges, learn that the challenges one station was facing, by and large, were the challenges that all of the stations were facing. And I think we really came together around that. And it became much more about it became much less about competition and much more about like the shared stewardship of our audiences. And from a donor perspective specifically, I think that we've come to learn that that there really, if anything, this kind of opened us up, and it let us expand the conversation with donors. It potentially creates new opportunities, not only for larger gifts potentially, but also gifts across all of the stations where maybe those gifts wouldn't have come through at all, or maybe would have come through for one of the stations, but not all of the stations. So when I think major donors who love public media, we've learned they're not loyal to just a single brand. They're loyal to the entire mission. And so for those reasons, I think we overcame any sort of the competitive juices that might have been flowing in the beginning. So much had changed, and we built up so much trust over time and engagement, and really came to learn very quickly that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and everyone bought into that by each and every single station. And so that was key as well.
Hey, Mike, let me just add one more thing here. It wasn't all intuition. We looked at the Nielsen data, for example. We looked at our individual station data, and we saw the seeds of what we have now with this collaboration, which again really gave us the foundation. Once we saw it in the data, before we even talked to you or we talked to CDP or PMC, that gave us the justification for moving forward.
And what data did you see?
Nielsen sharing station duplication data specifically is what we looked at initially, Mike.
Okay. All right. Anybody else want to comment on donor overlap? Any other thoughts? If not, we'll move to the membership side of things. And Rich, what led you and others to move in that direction? You received the membership research from Paragon. Going into that, it was a white blank piece of paper, but it ended up taking you to joint events. What brought you there?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to give props to all of our membership teams. In addition to everyone on this call, all of our membership teams who help collate all of this information and make this study possible. On our end, it was Kathleen Allard and our membership team at FUV, and every other membership team on the call, in addition to everyone on it now. And I think for us, the study really clarified something, and we mentioned intuition a little bit earlier, that we all felt intuitively that our listeners and members, they already overlap in the real world. And by the real world, I'm talking about in culture, as far as venue and show attendance, in lifestyle, and generally how they think about public media. So I think the big takeaways from members from all four station pointed out, I think it was like 3 or 4 key points. One, they discover music and culture across multiple platforms, and they don't silo us the same way that sometimes we tend to silo ourselves. They look at us as part of a wider platform, and those that don't know us that well would benefit from learning about us across all of those platforms. They see events as an extension of our mission, not just entertainment, and they value experiences that feel authentic and closely related to public media as well. And they want and expect collaboration. They want more of that, if anything, not less. I think a lot of members spoke positively about the idea of cross-station experiences that feel unique, that feel mission-driven, and that involve community building. So I think events in that way really became a natural place to start collaboratively. They create shared value. They potentially deepen member engagement and demonstrate this spirit of partnership, I think, in a very visible way. So, and I think that's, if anything, not less important now. It's more important than ever now. And we all bought into it. And I just think it just shows you, again, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And when everyone comes together, we could really move the needle in that regard.
Julie, was there anything that surprised you from your member data, from the membership study that Paragon interviewed each station's members?
Yeah. Well, seeing that slide, that WSHU didn't have a lot of donor overlap with the other stations yet in that survey, they were willing to make an additional donation to support a collaborative effort. So even though there may not be, supporters of the other stations, they were willing to support that effort. And, a lot of our members have been, or donors have been members for 5 years, even over 50% of them have been giving for more than 10 years. So for them, I mean, that means they're really loyal to us, but it's really gratifying to know that they were willing to contribute to a group effort for a regional collaboration.
When you think about the impact of this study and sharing this with your team, What was the biggest positive change or realization that came out of that?
Well, I honestly came to this a little bit late. WSHU had gone through some staff changes, and I think I was like the fourth person fourth representative of WSHU. So I honestly didn't know what to expect. But everybody was immediately welcome. I was put at ease. It's been a very open collaboration, and that really stood out to me. I think the biggest realization is how much stronger we are when we stop thinking in isolation. You know, we're all, like Rich said, we're all in this together. We all have the same mission. We're all facing the same challenges. We've got smaller staffs, tighter budgets, competing demands, and this collaboration and the teamwork that everyone displayed in the openness, the open communication really reminded me we don't have to figure this out alone. You know, when we share ideas and we share resources, we can move faster, we can do bigger things, and, you know, better than we can do individually on our own.
Yeah, that really can't be overstated. I mean, I've been doing this for decades. I've never been in a room at a conference table with four competing radio stations and literally in the room and not knowing what to expect. And at the end of the day, realizing that these people on this call and others that were on the team in the meeting, they shared contact names and contact information for sponsors. They shared contact names and information for events that previously they had only done. I mean, there was literally nothing, and at no time during this whole grant process did anyone ever say, "No, we're not going to open that book up." And that's pretty phenomenal. Steve, I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Well, it's true. You said it. There was such a relaxed and transparent uh, vibe in that room specifically. And you know, you said four competing radio stations. Once we walked in there, there was no competition. We were all in the same situation and deepening situation as we were, you know, finding out. And we were really opening the arms for collaboration and support. Because that's the other thing, right? It wasn't just, oh, let's work together. It was, let's support each other, right? And that was, man, that's gratifying. I've been in radio for 50 years. And I've never seen anything. You too, Mike. I mean, you know, you've been in a long time. I've never seen anything like that, where it was so open and so welcoming and clearly productive.
Yeah. And I think hopefully you would find that in your market if you have a conversation with your other public radio stations. Eileen, let's start to focus on joint events here.
I saw Carlos putting
Specifically.
his hand up, Mike, if I can
Oh,
say,
Carlos,
I
go ahead.
was
yeah.
I was just gonna say, I mean, I think a key also, you know, you've heard a couple things, openness, trust, but also there was a um very, and I think again, this comes to music stations move a little faster on things. And so finding quick opportunities to work together, you know, not waiting for a final, you know, huge consultant report to come at the end of the day, but as a process going on, you know, Steve finding opportunities at QXR, sharing, you know, sharing personalities, sharing ideas, you know, actually moving on things, and then we can get when you get to Tiny Desk. I think that's an important part of this is not to make it some massive project, but to understand it once you build the trust and you understand what people are, their challenges are each day, looking for even small opportunities to work together to build that sort of muscle.
Yeah, you know, the other thing, Mike, about being in that room, uh, toward the end of the meeting, LaFontaine Oliver, who's my counterpart at New York Public Radio, came to me and said, "Hey, I have an idea." Um, and that idea turned out to be now a very successful venture on air, where there was a program that was about to be retired from WNYC, hosted by Paul Cavalcante called New Standards. And LaFontaine suggested that we might consider bringing that show over to WBGO because it was such a perfect fit from a content standpoint. And I only had to think about it for 5 or 6 seconds before basically we did the deal. And now that show is the second most downloaded program of all of our streaming offerings, and it has taken hold on the broadcast side too. And it just sounds terrific on the air. Never would have happened. Never would have happened in a million years without that atmosphere that was created in that room that day that we were together.
Yeah, and that wasn't the only thing.
No, that's not
Paul,
the only thing. There's some other things. Yeah, right,
I
exactly.
mean, I
That was
want to
notable.
focus on fundraising here, but Paul's also on WFUV and has been for a
Mhm.
long time. And then FUV has a host in Delphine Blue who
Mhm.
was picked up by
By WBGO.
BGO, and
Yep.
so yeah, there was some unintended benefits.
We're here for you.
Let's
We're
start.
here for you, Steve. We're here for you.
Yeah, the farm team. So focusing on joint events, Eileen, you really, I thought, stepped up and took the lead in identifying joint events as the way to collaborate. What have you learned from that possibility?
Well, I came from live events. That was my job, or is still my job, at New York Public Radio of doing live events around the city, both as a broadcast, but also just events for the public throughout the city. And it seemed like the best way for us to work as a collaborative because our audiences see us as curators, for one thing, both on the air, but also for events that we produce. And they trust us. They trust what we're going to be curating. So even though our formats are so different, I just thought what a great way for us to pool our resources and to open up to different audiences who may not know enough much about jazz but love Beethoven and find that crossover, or may not know the AAA format. But as we noticed, there's a lot of overlap among our members. So, and also generational. I mean, I was thinking in terms of opportunities for families who may, because our audience demographic skews much older, that maybe they bring their children, grandchildren to an event and then have other music possibilities too. So, we our big event that we did together. I don't know if you want me to jump into the tiny desk, but before I do that, I actually want to say something about this idea of being able to just breaking down silos. There's been a number of circumstances where I've leaned on the different stations to ask them questions about how they did. I reached out to Steve. I was like, "You just ran a digital marketing campaign. Can you tell me about it?" And he just opened up the book and just told me exactly what he did, how much it cost, who they were reaching. And it was so helpful. And I didn't have to second guess or, hire a consultant to ask those same questions. Steve was right there. I did the same thing with FUV. I noticed that they do these great events. They call them the FUV boat, FUV, FUV boat, with the circle line. And I called Chuck and I said, "I'm really curious about this. Can I find out more information?" And Chuck was like, "Absolutely, call this person." So I reached out to their events person. Again, I got every single detail that I was curious about, all the financials, everything, and how many people they get, and how they um, promote it on the air. So it was just wonderful. I mean, I to find that information on my own would have taken much longer. I don't know if I would have if they would have been that transparent if we hadn't had this organization. Anyway, so now to Tiny Desk concert. Tiny Desk has been doing this road tour where they go around to different cities around the country. And they wanted to do one in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. And they reached out to our sister station, WNYC, to be the media partner. And Mike Henry had the great idea. He said, well, we should also get in on this. So I reached out to the Tiny Desk folks and I said, can we jump in on this as well? And they said, absolutely. Um, so we worked together. It was three different bands. So we had the opportunity to represent each of our stations before the bands. We had Paul Cavalcante. I always call him the poster child for this organization because he's on BGO, he's on FUV, he's on WNYC, he's on WQXR. So I just don't know how he gets the call letters right when he's on the air and how he knows where he is all the time. So he was one of the hosts. Julie offered up a fantastic host. Randy Kay was there. Again, classical music host, but she was introducing, a rock band, or I don't know if that was the correct description of that band, but she did a fabulous job. The audience loved her. And then WNYC also had Allison Stewart, who's the host of our show, All of It. She introduced a band as well. But they were wonderful to work with Tiny Desk. They each gave us opportunity to table, and I had a lot of discussions with people as they came in. FUV wins the awards for the most swag, the most interesting swag of us all. I have to give you props there. And it was just a great opportunity to see an audience that was coming in to this venue. They're big NPR fans because they know about Tiny Desk, and then tell them, hey, we exist too. We are part of the public media system and we want you to know about us. And people were really open to it. And it was just a wonderful way to collaborate.
Julie, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, we don't have an events person here at WSHU, so working with Eileen was really like taking a master class in how to get everything done. It was a terrific experience. It was something that we would have never been able to do on our own. And the guidance and feedback that we got from Eileen every step of the way made everything easy. It made the team feel confident and ready. Our host Randy and our producer Ann, who came to the concert, they felt genuinely welcomed, like we were true partners in the event. So that sense of inclusion that we were able to feel made a huge difference. And it wasn't like each of us trying to reinvent the wheel doing events in all these places. It's one central location that's convenient to all of our listeners. And as we know, people are willing to travel even a little bit to see a great concert. And this was a great concert. So, yeah, the crowd was enthusiastic. It was a great event for us and it made us want to do more.
Reminder, if you have any questions, just put it in Q&A. And let's go back to Eileen, and I'd like to ask which specific events or what type of events that your station previously sort of did by itself have you identified for the collaboration?
Well, I would like to see if we could do one of the best things we do at WQXR. I think, is our classical kids fairs. We host three a year, and we focus on the outer boroughs. We just finished one in Queens a couple weeks ago at the Queens Theater. It's a full afternoon of performance, workshops. We have dance workshops, composition workshops. We have instrument petting zoos, that sort of thing. And it brings out, I think the attendance, it's a little hard to know attendance. It was about 1,800 people came to that. I could absolutely see those being joint events with other stations, and to broaden it too, to bring in some different kinds of music. I mean, we do a little bit of a crossover. We had folks from the Louis Armstrong Museum there in Queens. We had a group called Musiquita, who is a Spanish English duo. They kind of go into a little bit of folk music too, to play to our FUV friends. But I could totally see a kids event. We've talked too about, we all have connections within the New York area venues, and we all have our own relationships with different venues. And I could see us working together at find a specific venue and see what we can do within that venue and bringing out our different kinds of music. Because we all have strong partnerships, and we can parlay those a little bit to make something work.
Yeah, I echo that sentiment, Mike, that Eileen just put forth there, working with children. That's something that we also do here at WBGO. We have a what we call Kids Jazz Concert Series, very similar to what Eileen has described. And I'll tell you something, when you're talking about opportunities for philanthropic support, there's nothing more opportune than working with kids and then melding that into sort of an education initiative. Um, the coffers just open up like like magic when you start talking about kids and education.
Michelle, looks like there's a question.
Yeah, there are a couple. And I think this is referring to the Tiny Desk event, Eileen. But the question is, how did you market the event? Did you have one plan that was implemented across all of the stations? And then I have one follow-up question about the event after you answer that part.
Okay, I have to go back to July. I'm trying to think. I mean, WNYC did the major lift on that for us, and it sold out really quickly. So we didn't have to promote it too much on the air. Um, I'm trying to remember how else we marketed it.
We
I think
all
we
did
put it,
social media pushes.
social
We all did.
media. Yeah, and our newsletters is how we did it. But we didn't have to do too much pushing because they really sold out quickly. I don't know, Rich, did FUV do much?
Yeah, we did social media pushes across Instagram and Facebook, and I think we did something for TikTok as well. And then did a few on-air mentions, and I think we had a recorded promo as well. But like as you said, it was easy because it sold out pretty quickly based on it marketed itself in a lot of ways.
Yeah, same here. We did social media to support that.
And when you guys did do the social media pushes, that's just from your individual stations, or did you have joint graphics, anything like that?
For us, it was the individual station that we did it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and then a follow-up to that one, was this event positioned as a fundraising event, awareness raising, or stewardship, or all three?
Mostly awareness and stewardship, no fundraising. Next time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I don't know if you want to keep going. There are some more here, but I can chime in as we keep going if we want.
Go ahead.
Okay. Patrick Osborne from Los Angeles. What are some examples of music and NPR stations working together from different companies versus music with music stations?
Well, there's View House Group, which is a collaborative that's been around about 11 years. That happens to be the shirt I'm wearing today. A nonprofit that I oversee as well as Paragon. And so View House Group is a station member organization that started as a video aggregation that is now on npr.org called Live Sessions. It's the only content up there that's 100% station curated. But we also have a national sales network now. And we do a lot of collaborations and sharing of best practices and data around video and other sort of best practices. Anybody else aware of anything else that exists in our industry? In
No,
the
I
music?
think View House is the prime example. I'm not aware of
Yeah.
anything else, but I think View House um, is the best and only example of what Pat was looking for.
Michelle, would love to see your live face if you're able to take your camera off and give us one more question. There you go. And then I'd like to wrap up at the end with one question for everybody to answer. So let's try to knock this one out in a minute or so.
Sure. So this one, I'm sorry if I pronounced this incorrectly, Shonda or Chanda Shaw. They say this all sounds incredible from a fundraising perspective. How are the contributions and donor details managed and dispersed?
It really hasn't happened yet. I mean, in terms of what was described in the last question, that's aspirational for us, absolutely. But it hasn't happened yet.
We have
Uh,
built we built a, sorry to interrupt you, Steve. We have built a criteria for like staging joint events in the future and just kind of beginning to think about that. And the four criteria that we talked about this for a while, but came together on was one like mission alignment, like does the event elevate the culture, music discovery or community service values that unite our stations? Is there revenue potential around it? Is there scalability and operational like feasibility around it? And is there an audience fit and brand authenticity around it? But I think that's the next, and really what that one event was an opportunity for us to see how this went, to kind of work together. It was already built in for us in a lot of ways. So the opportunity to collaborate on that and participate as part of it was really helpful from just like gaining knowledge perspective, and then building like a criteria around it. And now I think with the criteria lineup that I just mentioned, I think it becomes obvious that the next step is about figuring out how we want to drive revenue around it and then split it amongst the stations. Is
All
that
you
fair?
right.
know,
Go
yeah,
ahead,
I was
Steve.
just going to say a lot of the things that we've said today, inclusive of what Rich just said. So these are things that individually we think about all the time. How do you do this? How will we do this? How do we coordinate this? How do we coordinate that? And a lot of questions became answers when we started working together. It really started to clear up some areas where maybe we weren't entirely sure how to proceed, and you get ideas too. The ideas that each one of these stations have about how their normal process works may not be the approach that another station is taking. So when you're in a room, you hear people talking about how they do things. It does turn on a light bulb for you. Yeah.
And speaking of light bulbs, everybody on this call from the stations had massive contributions along the way. A couple of the key light bulb moments for me was Eileen really globbing on to events, events, events. That's where we got to go. Given her background, she saw it. And when she saw the data, she's like, yes. And a couple came from Rich. Um, Hit singles, not homers. Just make small wins. Build your winning innings one at a time, and you'll end up winning the game. And another thing that was a question we didn't get to that I'll answer by saying that, Rich also identified existing events and festivals that did not have music components to approach them and say, hey, how would you like to have four radio stations promote your event and we can provide some entertainment? And that's a great way to tag on to events that are already happening so you don't have to create them from scratch. Um, Last question, and let's try to keep our answers to 30 seconds or less. For each of the four of you, we'll start with Julie. What advice would you give to stations in other markets who might consider collaborating around fundraising of joint events?
I would say start small. Pick one event or project that you think that you can learn from together, and be open about what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and assume good intent. You got to trust the people that you're working with. We're like we've been saying this whole time, we're all in this together. We all have the same mission. So assume that everyone has the same good intent, and celebrate each other's wins. Like a win for QXR is a win for SHU. And when one of us wins, we all win. All, the tide raises all boats, that kind of thing.
Rich?
Yeah, I would use the baseball analogy again. My baseball analogies went over. I don't know if everyone was just humoring me, but they went over so well amongst this collaboration. I wish they went over at home when I bring them up. My wife doesn't seem to find them as. But yeah, hit singles, not home runs, because I think there can be a pull with collaborations like this, especially when you're talking about a CPB grant and you want to you try to do too much, and then as a result of that, nothing ends up happening. So I think the event that we did was a great example of that. Like hit a single up the middle and then build on that. So that would be my biggest recommendation, to echo Julie and Mike.
Awesome. Eileen?
Yeah, I pretty much echo both Julie and Rich. I just say, remember that there's a lot of shared knowledge, a lot of knowledge among these four radio stations, and don't be afraid to lean on each other, because we can always learn something from each other.
And Steve?
Uh, Pick up the phone, call up that person at that other station, and go out, have a beer or something, your favorite beverage, and just get to know each other. That's what me and Chuck Singleton did. We emailed and texted and called and went out and got to know each other, and then from that, all of this stuff started to happen. And so that's the first thing you do. Everybody's got great ideas. Obviously 10 ideas, but the best one is the one that you can actually execute. But before that, you just go and get to know that other station across town, and find the commonality, and from that commonality will come ideas and then the execution.
Well, thank you, Shonda. I see there's one hanging question there. Reach out to Deb Ashmore at CDP. I'm sure she'd be happy to answer your question about the major donor inquiries. I want to
Carlos
thank.
had his hand up.
No,
Go
I
ahead,
gotta go.
Carlos.
I gotta go. That was
Oh,
sorry.
okay.
I apologize.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Really
Bye.
appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks to CPB once again. Thank you, CPB, for everything you did to make this happen.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it.